Mr. Abhishek Sengupta.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, sir. Sorry, I didn't want to start off that loud, but before even I get into my motion, we seem to have problems with fruit sellers without forgetting the fact that a tea seller is now a prime minister of a country, and I'm necessarily not a fan of the politician that I just mentioned. Anyway, good evening, everybody. Thanks for taking the time out today. Growing up, I admired a certain St. Xavier's alumnus who was famous for taking trips every year, every summer to England. Now, I always thought that certain privileges, we spoke about privilege, are meant or reserved for certain people because he came from a very wealthy family and he became several times wealthier by playing cricket for his country. Until day before yesterday when I came back, what turns out to be my third or fourth English summer. And this time, I didn't go for work, I didn't go for an IT project. We spoke about technology and how it is leveling things up. It was not an IT project, but it was plain simple holiday. A holiday which included a trip to the iconic long room of the famous Oval Cricket Stadium, once reserved for the English upper crust. And I'm a brown-skinned Indian, and today, Mr. Chairman, sir, I feel, to borrow a line from George Orwell's Animal Farm, more equal, slightly more equal than I was 30 years ago. That's the time when my father went out of the country for the first time to Japan, came back with 4 cans of Coca-Cola, which of course I consumed after a while, and a Walkman, which I still preserve. The Coca-Cola cans, symbolic of the times we were living in. Gautam mentioned how more and more people are flying. In the 90s, Coca-Cola cans in a closed Indian economy was as much a novelty as flying out of the country. Mr. Chairman, sir, I heard for almost half an hour my worthy opponents. They came and presented their motion, and I was waiting. They spoke about averages and how average context coming out of it, but I did not conclusively find anyone correlates that affluence and inequality go hand in hand. In fact, to talk about, I find it morally condescending where we are talking about equality sitting in a liner that's dedicated or named after the daughter and the successor of the last emperor of India, who by the time when King George VI officially ended the British Raj in 1947, we were left tottering on our knees with a global GDP share of 4%. Some would say 2%. I'll take that. And that in comparison to 1820s when our global GDP share was 16%. And in 1870s, we were down to 12%. The height of unequal times. I'm sure all of us have come a long way as societies. Mr. Chairman, sir, these are the countries today that's changing the world order. We've already heard the numbers, and I'm not going to repeat because time's running, but I will still present some numbers very quickly. According to World Bank's measure of shared prosperity, the share of the bottom 40% of the income distribution is increasing faster than average. Reduction in wealth inequalities, along with the decline in aggregate wealth, overall wealth inequality also fell in 22, and we're still waiting for 23 figures. Global median wealth, arguably a more meaningful indicator of how typical person is faring, did in fact rise by 3%, fruit sellers and laborers included. In fact, I am one of the 6 billion people who have increased their wealth in some way. And I am, to borrow a capitalist behemoth, loving it, as are all of you here, I'm pretty sure. Let's talk about countries, we heard from our opponents, they wanted us to talk about poorer countries. I've traveled the world extensively. I've been to Africa a couple of times. Let's pick up South Africa for an example. Today, the president is Cyril Ramaphosa. When he was born in 1952, he had no access to education. Technology was out of the question. He had no basic amenities, including a toilet. He had no rights, obviously, to vote. Today, he is not only the president of South Africa, the rainbow nation, but he also is one of the wealthiest human beings or citizens of South Africa, with a personal fortune of $770 million, which he accumulated by 2012. That's 3 years after I went to South Africa, and I've seen firsthand. And he is representative of how average black South African, Cape-colored, brown, that's why it's called Rainbow Nation, they have emerged. Before I end my debate, I wanted to talk about communism because I've traveled to East Europe as well. But I just wanted to tell you that even now, if you still hold on to this, to this notion that inequality is actually correlated to affluence, by a stretch of imagination, even if it is true, what you're not understanding is equality has many shades. And I want you to imagine this in your eyes before I let you guys go. There are 3 boxes. There's a 4-year-old child, there's a crippled child who has no limbs, and there is a 15-year-old boy. Somebody mentioned IPL and how they're crazy about it. They want to watch a cricket match. There's a wall. They cannot watch it. We provide them 3 equal boxes to stand on. That may be equality, but that's not equity. And that's where we
I think you need to